2023 was one hell of a year for mixed martial arts, filled with incredible wins, shocking upsets, and its fair share of controversy. For this video, we're going to bring you the moments that really stood out, the definitive happenings within the world of the UFC that will mark this year in the history books. Now, without further ado, here are the most memorable UFC moments of 2023. Ngannou's exit. Few knew just how much of a success Francis Ngannou would be in the sport of boxing. But when he left the UFC as its reigning heavyweight champion, it represented an insane turn of events. Francis and the UFC have been having problems for years, but to see a fighter of such major status and star potential leaving the biggest MMA promotion was a big shock. But the even bigger shock would come later that year when the Predator threw down with one of the greatest heavyweight boxers on the planet and dominated most of the fight.
Oh, he catches him off guard! First met up to talk about this fight.
Makhachev versus Volkanovski won. 2023's Fight of the Year was also one of its earliest title collisions, the super fight between the lightweight champion Islam Makhachev and the rising featherweight king Alexander Volkanovski. This was just about as high-level an MMA contest as you'll ever see, a thrilling chess match that had one of the wildest final minutes imaginable. Though Islam took home the win, it was Volk who had the biggest moment, dropping Makhachev in the final round while surprising us all with his amazing defensive wrestling. But more to come on this rivalry later. Shevchenko finally loses. UFC 285 served up quite a few interesting moments, but the biggest shock of all, on paper, came when Alexa Grasso capped off a competitive showing against Valentina Shevchenko by taking her back and subbing her with a rear naked choke in the 4th round. Grasso, who's a striker by nature, had looked pretty good in there with the bullet. But to tap her out in that fashion? Yeah, this was not the expected outcome. Not even close. She then went on to prove that this wasn't a fluke by edging out Valentina in their rematch. Jon Jones returned. On that very same UFC 285 card, a certain Mr. Jon Bones Jones returned from a lengthy absence to a new division, stepping into the heavyweight ranks to take on the masterful striker Cyril Gane. The fight was so easy for Jones that it almost seemed anticlimactic. He took down Gane with ease, worked his way to the choke, and made the Frenchman tap like it was nothing.
He's putting pressure.
A huge moment for Jones's legacy, but somehow a performance that was almost too dominant for its own good. Izzy's redemption arc. Losing 3 times to one opponent is tough. Not all fighters have a Juan Manuel Marquez 4th time's the charm kind of moment in them. And yet, when Israel Adesanya attempted to rebound from 3 defeats to Alex Pereira, he dove into the fire and produced maybe the greatest knockout of his career, inviting the Brazilian into the pocket to trade, only to lure him into a trap with devastating consequences. A huge knockout and overall moment for Stylebender's legacy. The Lioness retires. Even the great ones eventually have to hang up their gloves, and history will tell us that most of them don't get to do so on a win.
Big combination! That's it!
But Amanda Nunes has been the clear GOAT of women's MMA for years now, and after she won back her belt by destroying Juliana Pena, she decided that one more title defense was sufficient. And so, Nunes' last walk to the octagon came against Irene Aldana. And when it was all said and done, and Amanda got her hand raised, the sporting world knew that it had just said goodbye to a bona fide legend of the sport, one of the greatest fighters we've ever seen in women's sports. McGregor gets the KO. Conor McGregor didn't have the best 2023, despite successfully recovering from a gruesome injury. But hey, at least he managed to score a vicious knockout. Sure, the knockout was against the Miami Heat mascot, but considering the Irishman's level of activity recently, a win is a win. 2024 will hopefully be the year that sees Notorious return to the octagon. And whether you love him or hate him, the MMA world is certainly more interesting with him in it. If you're enjoying this video so far, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a single upload. A 125-pound classic. The hardcore fans were well aware of just how good Alexandre Pantoja was when he entered the octagon for his first shot at UFC Gold. In fact, he already held 2 wins over the reigning champ Brandon Moreno. But man, this fight was a truly wild spectacle, one of the greatest fights in flyweight history. It was a bout that rivaled the unparalleled action of Moreno's quadrilogy with Davison Figueiredo.
Beautiful round by Brandon Moreno. Look at that beautiful double left by the champion. A little jabs with Moreno as the fight went on. Right here, a beautiful...
And when all was said and done and Pantoja got his hand raised, his heartfelt post-fight speech crowned him as both the champion and a star in the eyes of the fans.
Now, Dad, you proud of me, Dad. You proud of me and deserve my respect too, you know.
DDP's upset for the ages. There's nothing quite like watching a wild upset playing out. And for the fans of the Reaper, Robert Whittaker, there was a real sense of confidence in their fighter's ability to see off the threat of the powerful, but ultimately limited, Dricus du Plessis. Or at least, that was the narrative coming into this fight. DDP was clearly good, but this was Robert Whittaker we're looking at, one of the best fighters on the planet, period. But man, du Plessis went in there and put on a shockingly good performance, out-muscling Whittaker at every turn, on the feet and on the mat, before TKOing him in round 2. A new contender had arrived to the middleweight division, a huge win for du Plessis' legacy. The Sugar Show sticks the landing. Sean O'Malley might be a bankable star for the UFC, but even as he walked to the cage for his first shot at UFC Gold, there was still an argument to be made that he was underrated by most fans. Facing off against the great Aljamain Sterling, O'Malley was expected to have a tough time keeping the Funk Master off of him. And once Aljo gets a hold of his opponents, his ability to take their back is second to none. But Sugar Sean's distance control and feints were clearly bothering the champ, and when his takedown defense also held up, things got a lot more straightforward. A clean counter sat Aljo down in round 2, and before we knew it, O'Malley was the new undisputed bantamweight champion. The O'Malley era had begun, and it was crazy to see how easy Sean pulled it off.
Look at that, Joe.
Strickland shocks the world. Out of all of the ways that Sean Strickland could have beaten Israel Adesanya, walking him down and bullying him on the feet for 5 rounds would not have been high on that list. But when the time came for Strickland's first shot at a UFC title, he turned in the performance of a lifetime, outboxing and outworking Izzy over 5 long rounds, even dropping the last style bender at one point. It wasn't even a close fight. No, Strickland beat the brakes off Izzy, making for one of the most shocking upsets in UFC history. Islam levels up.
Yes.
Islam Makhachev was initially scheduled to take on Charles Oliveira for his second title defense. But when Dobronx got injured and his old rival Alexander Volkanovski stepped in on short notice, the pressure was on Makhachev to capitalize on his stand-up skills. And boy, did he step up, head-kicking Volk in the opening round to finish him with a violent TKO. Islam might come from the hills of Dagestan, but to simply call him a wrestler would just not be true anymore. This was the night Makhachev made his pound-for-pound argument very real. Poatan, the double champ. Alex Pereira's story could have come to its end, or at least never reached the same heights again, as he lost to Izzy by KO. But after scoring a win in his 205 debut against Jan Blachowicz, Poatan continued up the ladder and knocked out the seemingly unknockoutable Jiří Procházka after a highly impressive display of technical striking. All of a sudden, one of the most inexperienced top 10 fighters on the roster had just become the double champ. A bizarre turn of events for this undeniable combat sports great. The Aspinall era? Tom Aspinall may have taken a highly dangerous matchup with Sergey Pavlovich on short notice. But man, the way he performed on the night of their fight was truly all the proof we needed of his greatness. After taking a hard shot or two from the Russian, Aspinall stayed composed, found his moment, and KO'd Pavlovich with a huge series of punches. He might not have the undisputed belt yet, but man, Tom Aspinall might just be the greatest heavyweight on the planet right now. Hopefully 2024 will produce some solid answers to that question. But what was your favorite UFC moment of 2023? Let us know in the comments section below. And as always, don't forget to give us a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a single upload. See you guys in the next one.
Look at that, Joe.